The recent escalation in the South Caucasus has brought renewed attention to the fragile balance of power in the region, after Russia carried out targeted strikes on Azerbaijani-linked sites, an action that has sent shockwaves across neighboring states. The strikes, reportedly aimed at neutralizing facilities seen as undermining Moscow's strategic grip, have been interpreted as a sharp message not only to Baku, but also to other regional players considering deeper engagement with Western-backed initiatives. This sudden show of force by Russia comes at a time when the geopolitical chessboard is already shifting. With the United States pushing for the establishment of a corridor through Armenia that would connect strategic routes, bypassing Russian control, the proposed corridor has been framed by Washington as a project of regional connectivity and economic opportunity. But in Moscow's eyes, it represents a direct attempt to dilute its influence in the post-Soviet space and create new logistical channels that could reduce dependence on Russian transit infrastructure. Iran, closely watching these developments, has now entered the fray with an unusually blunt warning to Armenia. Tehran has historically maintained a cautious stance in the Armenia-Azerbaijan disputes, balancing its ties with Yerevan against its complex relationship with Baku, which shares deep ethnic and cultural ties with millions of ethnic Azerbaijanis in northern Iran. However, the prospect of a US-backed corridor cutting through Armenian territory has triggered a strong reaction from Iran, which perceives such a project as not only a geopolitical maneuver by Washington, but also a potential security threat along its northern border. The Iranian leadership fears that a corridor of this nature, if implemented, could eventually serve as a conduit for NATO influence, intelligence operations, and military logistics, thereby upsetting the already fragile security equilibrium in the Caucasus. For Armenia, caught between the pressures of its historical reliance on Russia for security and the growing appeal of Western political and economic engagement, the situation has become increasingly precarious. The country has been reeling from the aftermath of the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh War and the subsequent 2023 Azerbaijani offensive that reclaimed significant territories, leaving Yerevan feeling betrayed by Moscow's perceived inaction despite mutual defense agreements. This sense of abandonment has driven Armenian leaders to explore new partnerships, including with the European Union and the United States, both of which have shown keen interest in expanding their footprint in the region. I think the proposed corridor is emblematic of this shift. But it also risks provoking Moscow and Tehran simultaneously, a potentially disastrous geopolitical gamble for a small landlocked nation. Russia's military action against Azerbaijani-linked sites can be interpreted as a multi-purpose warning shot. While it clearly signals disapproval of Baku's growing cooperation with the West and Turkey, it also indirectly serves as a reminder to Armenia and others that Moscow retains both the capacity and the willingness to enforce its red lines in the region. Russia views the South Caucasus as part of its near-abroad security belt, and any perceived encroachment by Western powers is treated as a hostile act. In the Kremlin's calculus, allowing the U.S. to establish a corridor in Armenia would open the door to long-term strategic erosion of Russian influence. Similar to what has happened in parts of Eastern Europe and Central Asia, this is why Moscow's latest military move is not only about punishing Azerbaijan, but also about setting the tone for any future negotiations involving Armenia's transit routes and foreign partnerships. Iran's position aligns in part with Russia's concerns, but is motivated by its own regional security doctrine. Tehran has repeatedly warned against any geopolitical arrangements that might alter the current borders or create new, foreign-controlled transport networks in the Caucasus. Its fear is that such changes could embolden separatist sentiments among ethnic minorities within Iran or facilitate the establishment of Western military assets uncomfortably close to its borders. Moreover, Iran sees itself as a natural regional power in the Caucasus and resists any move that sidelines it from playing a central role in shaping the region's future. The Iranian warning to Armenia is therefore as much about protecting its immediate security interests as it is about signaling to the U.S. and its allies that Tehran remains a formidable player whose red lines must be respected. Complicating matters further is Azerbaijan. Its growing confidence following its military victories and strengthened alliances with Turkey and, to a lesser extent, Israel. Baku's strategic partnerships, particularly in the defense and energy sectors, have provided it with the leverage to resist Russian pressure while simultaneously attracting Western investment. However, the recent Russian strikes may be aimed at reminding Azerbaijan that its strategic balancing act has limits, and that crossing Moscow's security thresholds could invite a harsher response. Azerbaijan must also calculate how Iran's warning to Armenia might indirectly affect its own regional strategy, especially if Tehran's concerns about the corridor lead to a more assertive Iranian presence in border areas. The United States, meanwhile, sees the South Caucasus as a critical intersection for its broader geopolitical aims, connecting Europe and Asia while bypassing Russian and Iranian-controlled routes. Washington's S-Corridor initiative is designed not only to strengthen Armenia's independence from Moscow, but also to offer alternative pathways for energy and trade that diminish the strategic leverage of both Russia and Iran. This ambition, however, risks igniting the very instability it seeks to prevent. As evidenced by the immediate spike in military activity and hostile rhetoric following Russia's recent actions and Iran's latest statements, the emerging crisis illustrates the interconnectedness of regional and global geopolitics in the South Caucasus, where local disputes can quickly escalate into larger confrontations involving multiple powers. Armenia now faces the daunting challenge of navigating between its historical ties to Russia, the strategic promises of the West, and the security warnings of Iran, all while contending with Azerbaijan's assertiveness. Any misstep could lead to a dangerous escalation that draws in outside powers and transforms the current war of words and limited strikes into a broader regional conflict. For Russia and Iran, the stakes are about preserving spheres of influence and preventing the encroachment of rival powers. For the U.S. and its allies, the goal is to pry open a strategic corridor that could alter the region's economic and security map for decades to come. The danger lies in the fact that all sides see the next moves as decisive, raising the possibility that diplomacy may be overshadowed by military maneuvers in the near future.